What's going on, guys? Your man Unspoken Reviews back again with another video, and today we cap off the beginning of Daredevil Born Again Season 2. All right, guys. So my feelings with Born Again Season 1 was kind of a mixed bag, right? I didn't hate the show, but I can't say I loved it as much as I loved the way it was on Netflix. I do know the show dealt with a lot of changes after Feige threw out the old scripts that the writers had came up with and brought back in the Netflix talent that made the Netflix series so amazing. And they did what they could with what they had. They kind of had to bump off some old characters, bring in some new ones to have them easily wasted off. Muse, which I thought was completely wasted. I liked that White Tiger was in the show. However, he was only there for a little while. Of course, the mantle might get passed on, but I felt like that was a character that was pretty awesome that just got wasted. Of course, I know the main actor had passed away, so I did understand why they decided to just have him in a few episodes and then eventually have him killed off. The introduction to the AVTF was pretty interesting. Seeing Fisk back in power did not make any sense to me, seeing as how this dude got busted by the FBI and police twice. There was just so many things that changed in the series. No Mahoney, he was replaced with Cherry, who I really did not like in season one. There was just so much about the series that was a mixed bag. Like the fight scenes were pretty awesome. Seeing Punisher come back was pretty awesome. Seeing Daredevil back in his element, kind of going through his PTSD with the loss of Foggy, Bullseye coming back. Like I said, there were a lot of good things, but then there was kind of a lot of things. Some kind of major call outs to characters like Spider-Man and, seeing Fisk in such a power where he's kind of in that comic book space where he's in charge of everything once again. Having Vanessa come back to be such a key player, even though she wasn't in the script in the original type of show, I'm glad they brought her back. There was just a lot of things that happened that the writers kind of had to salvage, and it kind of turned the show into a mixed bag for me. Like I said, I didn't love it, I didn't hate it, but there were some great moments about it, but there were definitely some things I didn't like. All in all, we got a season 2, and it has been pretty awesome finding out the things we found out with the MCU. Obviously, we're going more street level with this year of projects, and only 3 projects. I'm glad Marvel is thinking about that. I know Doomsday comes out later this year, which means 4 projects in total, but I'm glad that the 3 projects that we're getting back to back all are street level. That's something that I really am glad at. Not everything has to be world ending stakes. I like when we get our street level heroes being able to shine. And obviously we have Daredevil season 2, which goes into the new Punisher special that comes out May 12th. Make sure you guys set your calendars for that. And then we have Spider-Man Brand New Day. I believe that comes out in July, which will pull all these characters kind of together. A lot of people were thinking that Daredevil was going to show up in Brand New Day. It wouldn't bother me at all if he did. We do know Punisher's in that movie. Hey, I think it's pretty awesome that they're kind of taking these 3 projects and kind of lining them up together. All right. This is where the MCU used to be at. Okay. And I'm glad they're kind of getting back into that momentum, and they're making me excited to watch projects again. So I hope it stays like this. And then we have Doomsday at the end of the year, which is going to have those universe ending stakes. And that's okay with me as long as it doesn't affect the momentum that we're getting from the series. I know they just greenlit season 3 of Born Again, so we've got a little ways to go. Okay, so last time we did leave season 1, Fisk did take over the city and became mayor, despite Matt's best actions to stop him. And it seems that he did create somewhat of alliance with, Karen Page, Cherry, and a couple other people in Hell's Kitchen that want to be able to make a difference and try to save the city from Fisk. All right, so episode 1 starts. It's called Northern Star, and it seems that it does start out with giving us a nice action scene with Daredevil. Obviously, he has the black suit, and I gotta say, it looks pretty crisp, man. It looks pretty crisp. Definitely looks comic book accurate. I'm glad to see that they're kind of going through that transitions of suits with Daredevil. We kind of had the red and yellow in She-Hulk, and then we had him back to the red outfit and Born Again, and now we have the black suit. I'm very excited. I'm glad to see that they're kind of giving him those layer of suits. I do remember there's one scene where he does open up the case, and then you can see all the different helmets that are in there, showing that he's had different suits over some time. I'm glad that they're doing that. It just gives him much more of that comic book feel, all right? And it looks really sleek. It looks like the kind of suit he would wear when he wants to be just a little more stealthy, even though Matt doesn't really have a problem with that, seeing as how his senses can hear and feel everything going on around him. That's not a big deal for him. So, of course, he does get on the ship called the Northern Star. I guess that's what the episode's named after. And he ends up finding a bunch of ordnance on there, a bunch of rocket launchers, illegal weapons, a lot of rifles. And he realizes that Fisk is bringing them in through Freeport. Now, if you guys don't remember where Freeport is, this was the port that Foggy was actually investigating in season 1, which led to Vanessa having Bullseye kill him, right? It turns out Freeport is somewhat protected from the United States government, as it kind of has standing from the country. It doesn't allow the country to do anything about Freeport, so pretty much anything can be brought in through there. And Matt manages to stop this. I like the trick that he does with the watch. He actually ends up taking a watch. He kind of takes his senses and hones in on that watch, and he puts it in one of the cases. I like that. It was like a really cool trick where he was able to memorize the way the watch sounds, the way it ticks. And I thought that was pretty cool. It just kind of shows the depths of how Matt's senses work. Not just him hearing things, but how he hears them. And then he can memorize that sound. He puts the watch in one of the cases, and of course, they have to sink the ship because the two people, the captain and the first mate, cannot be caught on the ship because they know they'll get in trouble with that. So they do sink the ship. However, Matt does use the watch and is able to keep it in there in case he needs to track the ordnance, which I'm pretty sure he was absolutely sure that Fisk would get it back. Of course, Fisk does come looking to get the ordnance back. He shows up, and it's pretty cool to see Vincent D'Onofrio in this role again. He really fits the role of Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin. It's crazy that he's been playing this role for so many years, and he looks good doing it. I like that he kind of slimmed down as a character a little bit and kind of added more muscle as opposed to being big and bulky and fat. I kind of like that. It really kind of shows that Fisk is trying to stay in a controlled weight where he can protect himself. And I like that. Of course, we see he still has the original squad with him, Sheila, Daniel, and Buck. All of them are now corrupt at this point. They all know what Fisk does, and they have all decided to stay working with him, which I think is completely stupid. There was even a warning there for Daniel from Bibi Urich, who, if you guys remember, she is the niece of Ben Urich, who was murdered in the Netflix series. And she actually even tells Daniel, hey, look, once all this comes crashing down, he's not going to be the one to go down, like she means by Fisk, because he makes Daniel deputy mayor. And Bibi warns him, hey, look, once this all starts crashing down, he's not going to be the one going down for this. And this kind of foreshadows exactly what may happen to Daniel later on down the line. If there is a way that Fisk is going to get out of this situation, I'm calling it by the end of the season because it leads into Brand New Day. And if you guys remember in Brand New Day trailer, Spider-Man gets the key to the city and it seems to be a new mayor. So I'm pretty sure by this time, Fisk will be out of office. And I'm pretty sure he won't go to jail and he's going to end up having Daniel take the fall for that. I'm calling it now because he is too eager to follow him. All right. He also is the source that Bibi uses to gain information for Karen Page. It's pretty good seeing Karen back again. And pretty good to see that she still keeps Ben Urich's name out there. I like that the show is still keeping characters who have passed on still alive in memory. That's pretty important because it keeps the characters grounded. It keeps them going forward and it makes them want to fight harder, right? I like the dynamic between Matt and Karen. It's so good seeing them back together again as a couple. Seeing them close like this again, training together. It's pretty cool seeing, Karen trying to train with the dummy, trying to get used to the blocking and striking moves and practicing that with Daredevil. I think that was pretty cool. I think it was pretty cool showing that she's not just being a journalist. She's also trying to be in a position to protect herself. We know that she kind of had the claws out a little bit in season 3 of Daredevil and in Born Again, but it's good to see that she's kind of keeping that same momentum, right? I like seeing that, okay? So, of course, we do get a new character that comes in known as Mr. Charles, played by Matt Lillard. And true Matt Lillard fashion, he plays a character with such intensity and just a little bit over the topness. However, he is the one that is responsible for bringing the ordinance into the Freeport, right? Apparently, this guy works in D.C., and he's got a significant amount of pull, right? There are the attorney general that comes in there, and he tries to tell Fisk that the powers that you're using, you can't keep using it because the governor is having an issue with it. Now, if you follow politics, the more and more that goes on, Fisk's actions will start to gain more attention, right? If he keeps on doing what he's doing, he's going to draw too much attention from higher powers, like even the president, if he keeps that up, which would involve the idea of possibly Sam Wilson getting involved if Fisk keeps on trying to control the city of New York like that. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what they kind of are really coming to warn him that he can't keep it up for too long. But Mr. Charles does seem to kind of move some things around. And it turns out that the attorney general gets a call from Miss DeFontaine. Yeah, that's right. Y'all, Val is still up to her little sneaky tricks. Now, whether or not Mr. Charles has her by the balls or not, or she's complicit in working with him, I don't know. I wouldn't put it past her because we all know how much of a bitch that chick is. But seeing her still making those kind of destructive moves, especially after she puts the new Avengers in the place that she does, oh man, somebody really needs to kick that chick in between the crotch. I'm sorry, y'all. That sounds kind of horrible. But she, of course, it still has her political pull and power, despite the fact that she almost got half the city destroyed by Bob, of course, Sentry, aka the Void. And she still seems to be making moves in the MCU. And I'm glad that the show is acknowledging things that are going on around, even though they're not really naming characters out loud like the new Avengers and stuff. Like they're still acknowledging the fact that things are happening out there in the world that cannot always can be controlled, right? And I like that. That also leads to the vigilante trials. Okay, I believe this is coming up to kind of control how vigilantes act in New York City. Of course, you know, in New York, there are plenty of vigilantes. As we know, Jessica Jones is in the series, so she's out there. I have heard word that Mike Coulter is supposed to be coming back as Luke Cage. And I also seen some still images of Finn Jones actually training again for Iron Fist. I heard there's word of a Heroes for Hire coming up. Hey, we'll see if it works out. I really hope it does. But it seems that, you know, after all the vigilante actions, the city is looking to try to crack down on it. I don't understand how that's going to work. After the Sokovia Accords were already, you know, taken down after the events of Endgame, it seems that Fisk is still trying to control that in New York City. And it's pretty wild to see how people are taking to it, right? Fisk does spin the narrative of the attack on the ship and switches it to a terrorist attack. And it's pretty interesting how people are really quick to just believe whatever they hear as opposed to making up their own minds about vigilantes. But I do like that the series is doing a job of making sure that the average citizen is being heard. I do like that because sometimes in movies we're just kind of getting the heroes and the villains, right? I kind of like when they focus in on the middle. Like even in Civil War, I did like that the one boy's mother does come up and, you know, confront Tony. I do like when people have their own opinions about the heroes. We always see that in Spider-Man movies. But I do like when series like this really do show how people are taking the actions of what the heroes and the villains are doing. It really does send a stronger message that their actions have consequences that are affecting the overall narrative, right? It also just makes me more excited for when we get mutants later on in the MCU. The series does also touch on some other characters we did from season one of those being Heather. Now, Heather Glenn was not a character I liked in season one. As you know, she was Matt's girlfriend in season one, and she had been attacked by Muse. She was very condescending. We do know that she is a therapist, and she was working alongside Fisk and Vanessa to help them through their marital problems. And Matt was warning her that she's getting in too deep, and she wasn't listening, you know? So, of course, they ended up breaking up because Matt still harbored feelings for Karen. She didn't like that, which I didn't really care because I did not like Heather, okay? She started off as a character I liked, and slowly as time went on, she got worse and worse and worse. By the time she got attacked by Muse, she really got on my nerves. You know, Daredevil managed to save her, and she got cocky talking about that she saved herself. And in this series, she's actually interviewing Jack Dukas. I hope I said his name right. I think it's Dukas. Someone let me know. I think it's Dukas. If you guys remember Jack, he was in Hawkeye, and he was the stepfather or the boyfriend of Kate Bishop's mother. And we have not seen Jack since then, but Jack had become the swordsman. We do remember he did use swords in that show, and he became the vigilante known as Swordsman. He is actually an Marvel character in the comics, so you guys can check that out. I'll put a picture of him right here so you can see him. But in this show, he is a vigilante that had been arrested by the Anti-Vigilante Task Force, and Heather is interviewing him to prep him for trial. And we see that as she's talking to him, she's kind of asking strange questions, and she kind of zones out for a little while. The reason for that is because she is struggling with some serious PTSD after being kidnapped and attacked by Muse. She sees visions of him standing around and walking around, and we see this twice in the episode. And we see that the way she treats the vigilantes is kind of cruel, right? She's not really being a professional. She kind of pushes and lies on paperwork in order to make vigilantes pay the price. I think this is kind of, it is the PTSD, but it's also kind of her way of coping with trying to gain some kind of control over the situation, right? Feeling like if she kind of makes these vigilantes pay, she can get over the PTSD that Muse put her through. Not realizing that not every mask is responsible for the problems out there in the city. It is good to see that her character is still somewhat involved in the action. She's just not thrown away. But seeing her kind of working with the DA's office and lying on paperwork like that just further adds to her being a character that I totally dislike. Okay. And I'm pretty sure she's going to pay for that later on down the line in the series. All right. So we also get Cherry back in this episode. And like I said, in season 1, I did not like Cherry. I did not like him. I just didn't like him. But it seems that in this episode, he still works alongside Matt and alongside his partner at the firm. And they're trying to work together to kind of figure out what was going to happen on that ship and find the missing captain and first mate, because they actually got away. And the anti-vigilante task force is still hard at work, still corrupt, still assaulting people. They actually punched a lady in the face at the restaurant. And, you know, they end up actually killing the captain of the ship. And it just shows how the anti-vigilante task force has way too much power. And it's very interesting seeing that a group like this is moving in the city. It's really funny when you watch the kind of TV footage they show to try to show that the anti-vigilante task force is a really great thing. But they're not. They're actually corrupt. They're out there breaking laws. I think that they said that several people around in town have just gone missing. And I guess they've just been taking them and either killing them or just putting them in cells, which is completely illegal. But everybody's turning a blind eye. And it's just so interesting seeing how deep everybody is in with Fisk and they can't get out of it. Like, honestly, when Fisk comes to you, if you have any reservations, you should just say no and leave New York. Honestly, that's what I would do. If I was in a position of power and he came to me and was like, hey, I want to offer you no, but I will leave the city because I am not working for you, dog. We good. Whatever you want to do, you do. Leave me out of it. That would have been my answer. But he either kills anyone that doesn't work with him or he has dirt on them to use against them. And the anti-vigilante task force is no different. Of course, Cherry ends up getting attacked by the ABTF and they get ready to kill him, actually. But of course, Matt does step in and he does save him. The fight scene in this episode, at this point in the episode, was very kind of weak. It does have some moments. I like the music playing in the background. I like seeing Matt get physical, the kicking. These are all things that we missed from the Netflix series. And I'm glad that they're not skipping out on the combat. Of course, Matt is still dealing with PTSD from the events of Foggy's death, because we see that Cherry is having a heart attack after everything that he's been through. He was actually getting interrogated by the FTF and was getting punched and beaten. And, you know, he starts to suffer from a heart attack. And this kind of throws Matt into PTSD about Foggy. Of course, that guilt does hit him pretty hard and he gets overwhelmed. We think that they're actually about to kill him. They actually even get his mask off and they get ready to kill him. However, suddenly all 4 officers just drop dead as something fires through the window. At first, a quick moment there, I was like, wait, Frank? However, a knife does come through the window and it lands and it says you're welcome, and you see the bullseye in the center, meaning that bullseye intervened and saved Matt's life. Why? I have no idea. Pretty sure we're going to find out in the next episode. But this episode was a pretty nice entry. I wouldn't say that I was overwhelmed by it. It was just a real nice beginning. It does a great job of making sure that you don't forget events prior. And it does a great job of making sure that the characters still feel the events that happen. I think that's important. Sometimes when you get to these next seasons or next episodes, characters kind of move like they forget things. And I'm glad that the series is making sure that we remember the things that are affecting them long term. So that way you don't think they're just kind of easily dismissing them. That's something I think that happens way too often. All right, guys. So that was my quick review of the episode. Very excited to finish this series. I think it's going to be pretty awesome. And I'm excited to see how this leads into the Punisher series and how this leads into Brand New Day. I do know the Punisher One Last Kill is supposed to be something about the Sanucci family, I believe. That is a crime family. I know Frank usually deals with the mafia and crime families. it's going to be pretty interesting seeing how they may be connected to the events of Daredevil. I'm pretty sure we'll find that out later on in the episodes. Probably by the season finale, we'll probably know exactly what Frank has been up to and what he's about to do. Um, I'm super excited about that. Been a fan of John Bertholt's Punisher. He does a great job in this role, man. I'm not saying the other Punisher actors have not done a great job, but he just does a phenomenal job honing that anger, honing that aggressiveness that the Punisher does have, and that serious no nonsense BS that he's just ready to get the job done, and he doesn't care what it takes, man. So I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Like I said, I wasn't overwhelmed by it, but it was a nice entry back into this world, and I will be waiting for the next episode. I hope you guys enjoyed the review. I've been Unspoken Reviews, and I will see you guys in the next one. Later.